Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be learning what are markets and how they work. Now, you have heard this word a lot before, you've seen markets yourself, but what exactly are markets? So market is basically simply a place, an arrangement that brings buyers and sellers together to exchange. Exchange means to trade, buy and sell goods and services, or let's say even resources. Resources meaning factors of production, a market for factors of production, right? So this could be, a physical shop, let's say a very famous market in Dubai, the Dubai Spice Souk, Amazon, the Raz.pk, or let's say a real estate website, or even your famous OLX where someone sells their, let's say, old laptop. So the key idea that you need to know about the markets is about, interaction between buyers and sellers, interaction and exchange, right? So we're talking about interaction and we're talking about the idea of exchange here, right? So it's not necessarily the physical location that we're talking about. The whole idea whenever you hear the word market is about interaction and exchange, right? So the famous Dubai Souk market, which is one of the oldest traditional markets in the world. If you walk in this market, you see, mounds of spices like cardamom, turmeric. You'll see saffron, cloves, cinnamon, dried chilies. You will see all these displayed, in colorful piles. So you see this market. If you look at this, this particular market, it shows how real markets actually work because you have a seller there. You have a seller's objective, which is to sell at the highest possible price he can to earn a profit, which is his objective is to maximize his profits and to sell at the highest possible price he can, depending upon the level of competition he has, right? While on the other hand, the buyer's objective is that he wants to pay the lowest possible price to save money. So obviously there's a conflict between the seller's objective versus the buyer's objective. The seller would want the highest possible price, but the buyer would want to pay the lowest possible price, right? And this is exactly where the concept of bargaining, negotiation, and in fact, the concept of market behavior comes in, which we will be going to be covering in the coming videos on demand and supply. Because seller would want a high price while the buyer would want to pay the lowest possible price. So there has to be a price that makes both the buyer and the seller happy, which is equilibrium price, and we'll study that in the coming videos. So, if you, and in a market, you will see that in a market, buyers and sellers, they have different knowledge, right? So, for instance, like the people who are living in Dubai would know the typical prices of these, spices, while the tourists do not, right? So there's a difference in knowledge between the customers as well, that sort of affects the bargaining power. And different buyers have different sorts of demands, right? So if you'll see a chef who's buying turmeric for hotel kitchen, he would definitely buy it in bulk. But if I go there, or let's say a tourist buys small quantities, he would buy small quantities maybe as just souvenirs, right? And this thing then shows us that different buyers have differences in needs. They have differences in budgets as well, and differences in purchasing power, and differences in purpose as well. And this differences in needs, budgets, purposes, and buying power sort of affects how much they demand, right? So, and like I said, you have different buyers as well as you have different sellers, and the more sellers you have, the better it is because there are a lot of advantages that you'll see that you have, because when the market has many sellers, like lower price. So if a market has many sellers, buyers would end up receiving a lot of benefits, and this usually also comes in small 4-mark questions as well at IGCSE O levels. That, for instance, you'll get lower prices because competition would push price down. So in a market, if you have competition, because this is the market dynamics you're studying, right? So market would have competition, would have many sellers, so you'll end up getting lower prices, better quality, because each seller would try to attract customers by improving his product quality. You'll see more variety because different sellers would offer different qualities, packaging, different bundles they could come up with. You'll find more innovations because sellers would try to stand out by offering something unique, right? So when you have many sellers, buyers can just maybe not buy from one seller, maybe go to the other seller. So buyers can walk away and buy from someone else. So this is basically bargaining power. I mean, this is like buyers have an upper hand. So, and this is exactly the foundation of competitive markets where you see a lot of sellers, right? And sellers would want to sell those things that buyers really want, which buyer, selling those that fulfill the preferences of the buyers, that's buyers want and desire, right? So definitely consumers are sovereign, right? They're sovereign, right? So, and if you want to know that how markets are actually working, you need to study about different examples of markets. So by the way, many students also think that market means only, let's say, a supermarket or a bazaar, but that's not what we're but that's not what economics says. Economics says that markets can be physical, or it could be virtual, it could be local, or even global. Like the market for vegetables in your local area, or let's say the global market for oil, right, where the world oil prices are determined based on the global sellers and the global buyers for oil, and the, let's say, the online market for laptops, or let's say the market, even you have a foreign exchange market where you buy and sell currency, foreign exchange, right? That is a market for foreign exchange, forex market. Or let's, you even have a market for resources. Remember I talked about market for resources, buying and selling of workers, labor. We talked about definition. In the definition we also included buyers and sellers together, they exchange goods, services, and I also use the word resources here, right? So the labor market for doctors, right? So you have markets by geography as well. Let's say let's say the Phuket carrot market, which is very famous. So you'll see, let's say, small and local and few buyers and sellers over there. But then, if you're just looking at the Phuket carrot market, but the global vegetable market, on the other hand, would have massive international buyers and many buyers and sellers, right? So, uh, while you also have markets by products, let's say market for chairs, market for smartphones, market for airline tickets, and also one more thing you should know as an IGCSE O level economics student is that technology is actually expanding the scale of the markets and actually expanding the market size, resulting in more buyers and more sellers. So, I mean, online platforms like Amazon, eBay, OLX, and Alibaba, they sort of allow buyers and sellers to interact without really meeting physically, which actually, this is expanding market. When you say that you're expanding markets, what you mean is that now you have more sellers and more buyers. Even banks now operate a digital market for payments and services, right? So, also, you must also know that buyers and sellers are different roles. Buyers are consumers here. Buyers are basically our consumers here. They want to maximize their satisfaction or their utility, right? So buyers could be individuals, they could be firms and the government as well. The individuals will end up buying food, clothes, mobile phones, maybe school bags, perfumes, watches, while firms would buy raw materials like flour for bakeries, I don't know, fabric for clothing brands, camera equipment for production houses, chemicals for pharmaceutical companies. So firms buy goods. Firms also buy goods, but those goods act as inputs for production, right? Government is also a buyer. Government would buy office equipment, they would buy buses for public transport, or let's say, I don't know, maybe MRI scanners for hospitals, for public hospitals. So government is also massive buyers in many markets. But on the other hand, these sellers, they're basically, sellers could be producers, right? So sellers supply the product to the buyers. They may be individuals, sellers, or maybe they could act as government entities or maybe firms as well. So individuals like me, I could sell a used item on OLX, such as I could sell my bike or furniture or mobile phones. Firms are also sellers, a firm could sell something newly produced like laptops, cars, or maybe an insurance company selling insurance to individuals, right? Government is also a seller because the government sells railway tickets for its railways. It sells, the government sells electricity. Very good example. The government sells electricity in especially where the government is a provider of electricity, and the government sells postal services, right? Uh, so this shows that in economics, selling is not just limited to goods, right? Even workers like labor, workers sell labor. They supply their time, effort, and skill, right? So, selling is not just limited to goods. We can also bring this concept for resources as well, right? Services and labor are also, services are also sold in the market. Labor is also sold in the market, where the workers, they sell labor, meaning in the context that they sell their time, effort, and skills, right? So guys, this is basically what markets are. And remember that market is not a place, but market is an interaction, right? And also remember that technology is expanding markets like online shopping, digital banking, e-commerce. And in the coming videos, you learn about this seller behavior versus and the buyer behavior. We'll bring two and two together, and you'll see that how this has an influence on price, and how much buyers and sellers would sell, and how much buyers and sellers would buy, whether they buy more or sell more, or buy less or sell less. So we'll bring all these concepts together in our next set of videos, which will be focusing on demand and supply. So this was just an introduction, because markets is ultimately being connected to demand supply in the later videos, right? So you learn about how supply and demand meet through pricing. So that's all, guys, for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, take care.